Yo, the Sports Bag Bros podcast is back on, and we're coming off of a long weekend. It is Monday, but what this Monday begins for the sports week, the NBA Finals is finally coming on Thursday. We have our two participants. Not necessarily a surprise, especially when it comes to bias. You thought that they were going to win in 5, they end up winning in 6. They're still there nonetheless. OKC is there, and from our standpoint, I think OKC kind of gets their first championship, but we would have to see the game first. What's good?
What's happening? Happy Monday. Yeah, I picked the Pacers in 5. I think they kind of mailed it in Friday night in the Garden, but you got to give credit to the Knicks for that game. Brunson came out on fire. He set the tone early, and the Pacers just never could cut it down enough to make it interesting, or at least not to make a last-minute buzzer beater at the end like they did in game 1. But the Knicks weren't able to slow them down in game 6, and I was like, this is bad for the Knicks. Second half, they're gonna start to tire, and I think the score was indicative of that.
Yeah, the Knicks. I don't even think I don't think Indiana mailed it in at Madison Square Garden. It's just that the Knicks was clicking, and as you said, Jalen Brunson, he really jumped it off real quick. I think he scored 16.
Hold on, I say that because Halliburton wasn't even shooting. He had like 3 shots in the third quarter.
Yeah, he had no points in the first quarter, and he didn't really feel like he needed to score as much as he typically would. And in fact, I've said in the past that he doesn't have to score a whole lot for his team to even have a chance to win. He can get 15 points because he's going to get 10 or 11 assists and probably not turn the ball over a lot and just be that field general you need him to be. But in the game again at home, it's just that the Knicks had absolutely nothing. Karl Anthony Towns, for all the talk about his 20 points in the fourth quarter of the game that they did win, he didn't do anything in that game. And then, I looked deeper into what has been going on in the playoffs with him, at least this particular series. He hasn't had a block shot or a steal in forever. So I didn't even think about stats like that. You look at offense all the time, even when you think about defensive players, he really wasn't that resolute on defense. You wanted a lot more because typically a guy like him is supposed to bring you that defense. And then Jalen Brunson, I think he was just a little worn out, couldn't give you what he needed to give you down the stretch, and this is the result of it. But Indiana still shooting over 40%, shooting 40% or better when it comes to three-point shooting. They do all the opportunistic things, and they get it done. And this might just be a team of destiny, but 9.5 points from Vegas against OKC on the road says that the destiny may just end here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep, really. I just think OKC is that much better than the Pacers. But getting back to Cat, it sounds like he was getting his Luka Doncic on the defensive side of the court.
The turnstile style.
And then Jalen Brunson, I think I might have mentioned it on Thursday. Like, he has to score like close to 50 is what I think I remember, or at least I thought it.
Yeah.
Like for the Knicks to win, because remember, we thought Cat wasn't even going to play.
Yeah, he sucked it up and played, but
he didn't go for 50 Friday night, or was that Thursday night? Whatever game 5 was.
I think it was Thursday.
And then Thursday night, and then Saturday game 6, he needed to go for 50 to keep them in the game, and obviously he didn't, and they got knocked out. But I think it would be a major, major upset if the Pacers somehow win this series, because I just think OKC is that much better.
Yeah, OKC is that much better, and I think OKC was that much better than the Timberwolves as well. It just happened to be in this quirky NBA season we've had as a whole, and I thought it would probably be a little different in the playoffs, and it is, of course, because the intensity and the overall ability of the teams to play together is better in the playoffs. But they can take that day off and lose by 30 points to a team they're not supposed to lose to. OKC on the road, they can fall for that. And the way Indiana scores in bunches, OKC can score with them, but they can score with them most likely at home, and they'll probably take those home games. On the road, they could probably score with them, but they can also be relied upon not to do so well on the road and just lose that game. I mean, they only have to lose by 1 to lose the game, but man, the way they've lost before, 20 points, 30 points, that's ridiculous for a team with that kind of talent.
That's true. And I think Could there be a Stephen A. Smith factor? Because Stephen A. said Halliburton wasn't a superstar. They didn't play like a superstar and bounced the Knicks. Now they're talking about how Lou Dort, he's a linebacker playing in the NBA, and he shuts everybody down. And I'm like, keep giving Mister Balls of Steel
Yeah,
bulletin board material. Just keep talking, keep talking. I mean, I think OKC's got way too much depth,
yeah,
but
they do.
stranger things have happened, man. Like you keep doubting that man, he may go for another 30 some triple double, no assists, and they still game one. Now what?
And Indiana, they have depth as well, but I think when they're playing the Knicks, they just had it was
Not as much
not like
quality
deep like
depth.
OKC exactly, but compared to the Knicks, when you talked about the depth, they got a whole lot more depth than the Knicks, and it was true. Now they're playing against a team that has just as much depth as they do, even more, and it could be a lot of what Vegas is expecting, and I think some people are expecting outside of Indiana, 9.5 point line. But I still think that Indiana, a team of destiny, even for a little bit longer, doing things they're not supposed to do, a sweep. I don't think they'll get swept. I think they do, and they're riding on confidence as well. And even though Halliburton is getting all the attention or getting some of the attention, if not most of it because of the name and not having the turnovers, Siakam gets the freaking MVP of the damn series. And he had 30 points or more in 3 of those games. But I'm thinking, even though he did edge Halliburton for that, I think Halliburton still could have gotten it because he did so much more. He got the points, he got the rebounds, he got the assists. He made everything work more often.
I think it had a lot to do with his game five performance or lack thereof. I was watching the game last night and Siakam was on the roll, and I was like, man, I could see Siakam getting the MVP for this. But I was like, nah, Halliburton, the buzzer beater, the
Yep.
triple double with no turnovers. I was like, he should still get it. And then he's getting clowned because he thought he was going to get it, and they gave it to Siakam.
Yeah.
They got that video where he's like fully expecting it, and then they say Siakam.
I was
But
surprised.
yeah, so was he. But Siakam, he was steady. He was more than steady, but he was more consistent. He didn't have that one bad game like Halliburton did. So, voters, they get in their feelings or whatever. They're probably thinking, all right, this is Halliburton hands down. And then he lays an 8 game 5. They're like, all right, well, who else can I give it to? Siakam. Let's give it to Siakam. I don't think it's ever it's rarely a honest vote. Like them voters always have something going on in their head.
You would think they would be on the side of the person who has the future of the NBA or is part of the future of the NBA, highly configured, probably going to Eastern Conference Finals multiple times in his career, especially in the near future. You would think they would want to hatch their wagon onto him. And that one loss, that one bad game he had, was it a bad game because he didn't take the shots, or was it a bad game because he missed the shots and all those other things that he had done in previous games? I'm thinking they don't get to this point without him anyway. It's not like they wouldn't get there without Siakam, but I thought that it was pretty obvious that Halliburton did everything you're supposed to do. He played basketball. That means the steals that he had gotten. That means even the little blocks he had gotten and everything else that he does as a guard. And I just think it was surprising. But you know what? It's not egregious because Siakam, you could see that you could at least, you can't cry about it. You're just saying, damn, they didn't give it to Halliburton. Now, what does this do for Halliburton moving forward? Probably pressing, trying to have those consistent good games and maybe MVP of the finals if that team can pull it off.
I don't think that's his motivation. I think his motivation is solely to win, and MVP comes, it comes. He doesn't seem like that type of player where he's all about the hardware. You mentioned it. He doesn't have to score to be effective.
No.
So a lot of times, if you get 12 points and 12 assists, that's a great game. But if Siakam has 28 and 10, it looks like he's the one that contributed the most.
Yeah.
But you have to take into account those 12 assists counts for 24 points.
Exactly.
Or possibly more when you consider 3-pointers.
Yeah, and look, I'm not gonna cry over it. I was just a little bit surprised, if not a lot surprised, but still can't really.
All you got to know about these series voters is they voted for Iguodala over Steph in the one series against the Cavaliers. Like,
Yeah,
did you really think Iguodala was the MVP of that series?
of course not. But you know what? But Steph also doesn't play as well in the postseason as he's played in the regular season with consistency.
But he was definitely the best player on that
Oh yeah,
team
the
that
best
series.
player of their team. I guess
And
because he
then
wasn't
players
expecting a lot. You
and then
wasn't
people were
expecting a lot
holding
from.
it against him, saying he never won a Finals MVP. And then the one year he had a bad game in Game 3, I think it was, but he hit the dagger three to give them the lead. I think he ended up with like 11 points or something. He had a terrible shooting game, but he had a triple double, a 42-point triple double in Game 4, and they gave the MVP to KD. But Steph was the man who closed the show in Game 1, and I think he outscored KD in Game 2, but he had a stinker in Game 3, so they gave it to KD.
I don't know. Yeah, they do have their little politics, and I think that's their little control factor they have. The media always likes to seem like they're in control at some point or another. They can't do a damn thing on the court, or if it's the football field, they can't do anything there. So they can write about it or vote about it and just put it where they want. But now we do have our matchup, and from what I'm seeing and what I've thought anyway before the series, and I kind of knew it was imminent, that it's looking to be an exciting tournament. It's looking to be an exciting a series. Young teams. Neither team has won a championship. All of these young guys may be around for the years to come, whether with this team or if someone steps out well enough to where down the road they go to another team, kind of do the James Harden, become a face of that team, and probably do something with it. But I think there's going to be a handful of players that's between both teams we're going to hear about for the next 10 years.
Yeah, we should. There's some good young players in this finals. And I don't know if the Pacers will be back next year, but OKC, if they win it all, there's a lot of work to be done by other franchises to come into next season and
Absolutely.
challenge them.
Because I don't even think they're in this position right now. I think other than the SGA to give out that max contract that's going to typically discombobulate a team, I think it's happening so quickly that everybody's going to be under contract for another year or two before anybody else gets a chance to disrupt what's going on. So there's going to be opportunity there this season, next season, definitely. The third season where you might have to start thinking about it because there's going to be a dynamic where money has to be paid. Players are probably going to leave, even if it's just role players leaving. But with their depth, but that's the identity of this team. In addition to having as quality talent they have in the front five, their depth is certainly the linchpin of their team right now.
Yeah, barring injury, like they're going to be in the mix for years to come.
Man, they were able to play well even when Chet was out in his rookie year. They were able to play well because I remember they were teasing whether they should bring Chet back and let him play, get him that playoff experience. They decided not to do that, and they still played fairly well. And I think all that leads up until now. And now Chet's back 100% healthy, and the team is even better now. Josh Giddey not being there, still surprising to me that that they got rid of him. But now what did they damn lose? Now he's out there in Chicago doing his thing and looking like he got something going on. But man, they got so much going on with that team now, to where in this 3-year window between this year, next year, and the year after, they're definitely going to be a team that look at, and it's going to be looked at differently than what we saw Denver. And we thought, man, this is the beginning of a dynasty when guys started leaving here, and the depth is here. Denver had some depth, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah, I don't know the contract situations of all their players, but their nucleus is pretty young.
Yeah.
So I don't see those guys going anywhere anytime soon. And Chet, he's still he's 21 years old, maybe.
Yeah, just a young dude.
He's still getting better. And they have the MVP. And he's the type of player that potentially could be in the MVP talk himself, with his game.
Yeah.
He's probably better defensively than people thought he'd be. And he has handles. He can shoot from the outside. He rebounds. He can, hit mid-range. Sky's the limit for Chet, man. I mean, that's why he was drafted so high.
He was that unicorn. Even when he was in high school, of course, he and Boncaro were in high school together, not in the same school, but they were in that same class, and they was talking about one or the other. And then now that he comes out, he goes to Gonzaga. He chooses Gonzaga. He plays well there. They talked about how he was a little thin and wonder how he's lucky to have picked Gonzaga because they're in that West Coast Conference and it's not the ACC, it's not the Big Ten, it's not the bigger conferences to where he could take a beating. But he's showing you he can do some things here. Handle wise, was it Jalen Suggs that's there in Orlando? His father worked with Chet Holmgren in his handle one year when he was injured. They have a great relationship if you saw the backstory between those two, but he was able to, his father worked with him with his handle. That's why he has such a handle for as big a man as he is. And that touch, he's always had that touch for some reason. And, and he's, for a thin guy, he's pretty fearless. He goes after those rebounds. And so he's just an overall tough dude. And we're seeing it right before our eyes. And he's exactly justifying being the number 2 pick overall. And that's that so far. And it looks like it may lead to a championship. I hope there isn't anything catastrophic that happens with one team or even the other team, in terms of a player going out with something that's extremely debilitating and just takes away from, the entire win of a team, depending on which team wins. I hope nothing like that happens. And I hate to say that it always seems like when we're all high up on everything, something has to take from it throughout the course of that playoff or throughout the course of that series. Always something that just throws a monkey wrench in which could turn out to be a fantastic series.
So I'm thinking, well, we were talking before the playoffs started. We thought OKC was too inexperienced that somebody would get them.
Mm-hmm.
But they made it through the gauntlet in the West, and now they got the Pacers. And the Pacers don't have a lot of experience themselves.
That's
this
true.
is their first time on the big stage. So if something was going to come back to bite OKC, it would have been a very experienced team, giving them fits, throwing things at them they're not used to, slowing the pace down, doing things of that nature. But the Pacers don't have a whole lot of experience themselves. The only advantage they might have is in the coaches, Carlisle.
Mm-hmm.
Carlisle may be able to do something, show a few different looks, but I don't think it'll be enough. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 4-game sweep.
But what the Pacers had to do this year, especially in the playoffs, was this trial by fire. You have to get your experience from somewhere, and it has to start somewhere. It started here. And luckily for them, they didn't breeze through. OKC essentially breezed through this, the West, even though the West is tougher from top to bottom than the East. But Indiana had to show a lot on the way to getting to this point. There was a lot of landmines in the way before they had gotten to this point. So that experience that they've gotten over the course of the playoffs, it's not like one team has been to a championship game and the other hasn't. They just haven't both been to the championship game, at least Indiana in 25 years, but no one on either roster has, no one in terms of the team.
Right. They have the same level of experience.
But I think that
they're not facing a team with a lot more experience.
A lot more experience. But
it's something that they have to deal with. It's not there.
But, I've always thought to a degree the experience factor was a little bit overrated when someone's way experienced more so than the other team, and then the other team comes in and beating them. And it's happened in the past with different sports where that team that's on the up and coming takes over that team that's ultra experienced, but they're just an older team. Both teams are young in this regard, but you have to get the experience somewhere. It just happens to be this series. Everybody's on an even keel. Both teams had separate ways of getting there. I think Indiana went through a lot more adversity to get to where they are. Even though they beat the Knicks 4-2, they still have to really fight to get that. Whereas OKC, where was the fight? You even mentioned before the series started with Gobert. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do anything with OKC once he had somebody that was his size and picking on somebody his own size. We saw how it turned out. So they kind of breezed through it too, with the exception of that huge hiccup in terms of margin of victory. They just won the games the way they wanted to win it.
Yeah, it was like once they beat Denver, it seems like they found themselves. T-Wolves didn't have a chance, not a chance. Okay, they got it to 5. Okay, big, good for you. You got 1.
4-1, gentlemen sweep.
They got smoked, and all these experts were saying they're the team to beat after they beat the Stephless Warriors. That made no sense.
That didn't make any sense there. Right. The Stephless Warriors, and even with Steph, they're still an older team. They're still thinking like Durant and everybody else who's won a championship is still with that team, and everybody's in their prime or at least close to it. They just say these things, I guess, just for storylines and whatever they need in order to get people to click or listen or watch. But yeah, we got our championship game coming up. The series starts on Thursday, as already said, and still things going on in basketball because now the off season is going to be after this is said and done, in addition to the draft itself. But in July, you have these players that are going to be going to different teams. The newest news, at least right now in the NBA, Giannis and Toronto have a mutual interest in one another. That's what it says on the surface. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but what does it do for Toronto if he does go there?
I'm not sure.
That's what I'm wondering. Why would he go there? You would think he would want to go somewhere to where he could win immediately or have a chance to just win in a short period of time because he's not getting any younger himself. You would think some of the other teams, Toronto seems not to be that team right now. Looking at what they have. Now, I was looking at Grady Dick. That's the dude I wanted to start doing some work there, but Giannis coming in for what?
Can you
What
say
are they
that
going to
word?
win?
Can you say that word on YouTube?
What Grady? Damn, that sucks. Change your name, man. Call him Grady Joint.
that makes no sense. He may as well stay in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
you know he could get bounced early in the tournament in the playoffs, staying in Milwaukee. Why go to Toronto? I don't see that happening. They're rebuilding. How much can they really offer Milwaukee for one, and for two, does he want to be part of a rebuilding situation? I think he's probably going to go to a contender. There's a lot of New York Knicks talk. You know, maybe there's Rockets or Clippers.
Rockets might be a nice
Wendy
spot.
mentioned something a few weeks ago that he's very well versed in the tax situations in all of these states.
Yeah.
So that lends him to going to either Florida or Texas.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to California and paying their high taxes.
Going to Memphis.
Nah, he ain't going to Memphis.
He'll have a hell of a nice shot at a championship in Memphis.
Whoa, you can't say that word when talking about the Grizzlies. Shot. Huh? Can't say shot. Talking about
right. I might get suspended for that. Maybe, but it'll just be a 2-game suspension anyway. Come on. Yeah, man. But looking at those taxes, and wish Mississippi had a team because they're not about to go with no state income tax. But yeah, Texas, and you have 2 NBA teams there, and then Florida, you have 2 NBA teams there. Yeah, I mean, but what would Miami would be the Florida team because I don't think Orlando would.
Yeah, Orlando seems to have like a good thing going. Why bust it up and take a chance? I mean, that would be a huge risk, giving up a lot of young talent to bring in Giannis.
Absolutely, yep. That's exactly what it would be.
Stranger things have happened. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. But the Toronto news didn't make a whole lot of sense unless the only way I can see it is because he's going there, other players are going to want to go there. Have you seen that in the past couple of years where we used to have where players were such friends and they kind of announced that they wanted to play together and they end up playing together like we saw in Brooklyn just a couple of years ago with their alleged big three? I haven't seen players doing that recently. Haven't said, I want to go there because this guy is there. They haven't been doing that. To their credit, they haven't been really stacking up and doing that.
Yeah, not for a few years. And if you look, the way OKC has put their team together, the way the Pacers have done it. Now the Knicks made a trade, but they didn't bring in superstars.
No.
So they've kind of built it in the old-fashioned way. Seems like teams are getting away from that.
Yeah, and even when Milwaukee did win their championship, they were saying the same thing. Giannis stayed around from the beginning and did it organically, and from beginning to end, he stayed there and got himself a championship. So yeah, I think that's probably is the best way to do it. And can you really, even if you're a great player like Kevin Durant, and you pick and choose a team, especially a team like Golden State, and you win a championship there, are you really supposed to be proud of yourself, or is it just something that happened? That you got a championship you're supposed to have gotten, and this is something you could retire with, knowing you won a championship.
That's a question he's going to have to answer for himself when his career is over and he's got his grandkids on his rocking chair. He's telling them stories. It's up to him to decide. Is it enough? It's not for me to say. We all have our own opinions. Mm-hmm. I would think he'd want to do it win a championship without the Warriors,
Yeah.
because then that would put a stamp on his career. That would solidify him. But there could always be that question. I mean, there's no doubt he's a top 15 player of all
Oh,
time.
without a
He's a
question.
top five scorer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Something he's the greatest scorer
An
of all
instant
time.
bucket.
I won't go that far, but I'll give him top five. But is that enough for him?
Yeah, but
I
man,
can't answer for him. I don't know.
because even with that talent and even being an automatic bucket, if he went anywhere else outside of Golden State, does he win a championship? And that's
You
always
know,
going to be
as sensitive as he is, creating burner accounts on Twitter,
this guy, right?
and
These
I
guys, man.
think I would think he has to win another one to remove all that doubt just for himself, because you come at him on Twitter and you might think it's fact based what you're tweeting, and he gets in his feelings and he comes right back at you.
This dude shouldn't even
So,
worry about people like that. He should have somebody on
right.
that burner account
So
talking for him. He has
that's
to
what
get
I'm
on there.
saying. Like, he's aware of what's going on out there in social media. I think he's a little bit sensitive. Now I'm not saying that he's weak by any way, but I think certain things bother him. And most pro athletes, they try and remain above all that. Not KD. He gets involved.
Yeah.
I think he's done better in recent years not doing it. But anytime you create a burner account, because you want to go at people,
That's craziness, man.
you got to have something going on inside that's bothering you.
Insecurity, and that insecurity may come from knowing that he didn't do it at least close to the old-fashioned way, earning it, just hitching your ride on a team that was already ascending or already at the peak, and you just made him better, made him just astronomically better, and you won a championship along with it. Now, that second championship he has, even as an older player, does it have to come with a team that's an ordinary team or a team that's ready to take the next step, or what? Because if he does what he did with the Golden State Warriors, what happens? I want to go to OKC now. I want to go back. I want to have a homecoming. No one's going to look at him the same way. Like, oh, yeah,
that's true.
He
Or if
really
he
doing it
goes
his
to
own way.
Houston,
He goes to Houston now. He can make some things
and
happen.
they're like, well, they had the second best record in the league last year. Yeah, he's got to be careful. And I tell you what, though, for KD's legacy, Klay Thompson getting injured in the finals against the Raptors was the best thing for Kevin Durant, because had they won that third chip in a row with KD sidelined with an Achilles, that would have invalidated him being on the first two championships. Like,
I never even thought about
they didn't
that,
need you. They still won. Yeah, you were there for two, but you got hurt in the playoffs, and they still won it. And I think the Warriors would have won it. They lost in 6, I think it was. But I mean, you can't lose KD and Klay Thompson and expect Steph to beat the Raptors by himself.
Yeah.
So, but as far as KD's legacy, that's one of the best things that happened to him.
Yeah, and he does have a legacy. I don't think anyone can take away from the player that he is. It's just that the accomplishments he's had, and on the highest level, the accomplishment is getting an NBA championship, not even an MVP. And the way he went about getting his championship is where the questions are going to come in, where the questions are already there. So we better get ready for another burner account somewhere in the future if things don't go the way he wants them to go. Now, looking at what had just happened in all these playoffs, I know I've been seeing some articles or some titles of articles. Where do the Knicks and the Timberwolves go from here? And I hear Jalen Brunson also, they claim he's overconfident about we're going to do it again next year. You think anyone wants to hear that after what we just saw? After
do what again? Fell apart? Do what again? They didn't do anything.
No, he thinks they can do it. They're going to do it for sure next year.
Oh, win it all?
This year. They can get back to the playoffs. We can get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. And this time we're going to close the deal, essentially what he's saying. They're saying he's overconfident. No one wants to hear about your overconfidence after losing the series the way the series was lost and the way he played in that series.
Let me ask you this. Say they add a couple pieces. Does it matter because is Tibbs going to play them?
I think he's saying, I think there was a quote where he said that, the way they're constructed now, they can do it. You've already proven you can't. And I don't see anyone on that team getting any better than what they are right now to help do that. especially if there's an OKC out there on the other end, if they end up in the same situation next year.
The only way that happens is if Cat plays out of his mind consistently. He's the only one besides Brunson on that team that can do it.
That's it.
But he's got to be doing 30 and 15 night in, night out for that to happen, in my opinion. And he's got to mix in some 40 and 20s or something, 40 and 17s, and with a couple block shots.
And what's up with Tibbs, man? This isn't something just for this series or even this year. This has been a year after year thing with him not playing the start or playing the backups, not using the bench as much as he should. And the one time he did it, they ended up getting the win, and everybody talked about him. They lauded him for it. He even mentioned, yes, I use my bench. Just to not use your bench effectively the next time. I don't know what the deal is. I know that we're not smarter than the coaches, but sometimes you wonder if these coaches are too damn smart for their own good, or they're trying to prove something or even outsmart
those
themselves.
Bench players really that good, though?
They're not that good, but they got to be not the desired result. They got a desired result, and for him not to go back to them as effectively the next time, I mean, it's just another Tibbs thing.
I heard it all morning. There's questions whether or not the Knicks should let Tibbs go. If he let the bench players play more, they would have been better prepared.
They've been saying that for
in
years.
The playoffs. I'm like, okay, that could possibly be. But if he played the bench players more during the season, they could have lost a lot more games too, and not had the seeding they had, and would have had a tougher way to get to where they got. I don't know. I think if the bench players were that good, Tibbs would play them, but he obviously doesn't trust them. So who am I to say? Who am I to say he needs to play his bench players more? I don't see them in practice. I don't see what time they get there. I don't see what time they leave. I don't know what they're doing after games, before games. Tibbs does. So I can't question the coach.
I don't, I rarely question coaches, but then sometimes, you get the outcry so much from fans that at least it's a topic to talk about.
I do question Steve Kerr though, because he never liked to play the young guys. He ruined Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga has a lot of talent, and for some reason he benched him. And then when Jimmy went down, he threw him in the starting line. All right, go out there and help us win. You can't expect that. The kid been sitting for like a month.
And now you want to go out there and try to be a hero. I don't know what the heck is up with these coaches sometimes. I never try to act like I know more than a coach. I know there are people who believe that they know more than the coaches out there, especially even on this level. You just don't. And so with the Knicks, I just don't. Who could come into this team right now that could be that third player? Before when Julius Randle was there, I remember Mike Greenberg from ESPN. He was talking about if, he's a good player, but he isn't a special player. So if you brought anybody who was even a half a star in, they would be the number one guy. He would fall the number two. And if you brought in another player, he'd be the number three guy. And it seems like that would have been true because right now it would have been Brunson, it would have been Cat, and it would have been him if he were there. But we don't have Cat without getting rid of him. But I mean, if it was that scenario, he would be that third guy. So who would come in or who can come in to be that third guy or even someone to leapfrog what Cat is doing right now if he doesn't get his defense back, especially?
I don't know. Giannis.
Well, Giannis comes in. He'll be the number one guy. Giannis he'll be the number one guy even in front of Brunson, or will be expected to be.
But to bring in Giannis and or KD, they have to give up a lot, man.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
You're already talking about a roster that Tibbs doesn't trust. You give
There's
away
no
two or three of those guys,
man,
he's going to have a 6-man rotation next year.
You'll be getting rid of first rounders until 2030 over this deal, man, if you try to get him. But I don't know who could come in and solidify, because even as I continue to say, I thought that Brunson coming in was just another Allen Houston pickup where you just paid this guy money. He's a decent player. You just hope that the fans just be quiet. You hope things work out for the best. What Allen Houston never did, but with Jalen Brunson, he surprised a lot of damn people, showed what he can do, and even more. Stephen A. They showed the clips of him being upset when he came. I think that was the sentiment of a lot of New York Knicks fan when he came. They didn't expect him to be as good as he turned out to be. Luckily, the Knicks finally got something right, because this is the same Knicks crowd who booed Porzingis when Phil Jackson just obliterated the organization as well. But that was the one thing he left the Knicks with before he left. And Porzingis turned out to be a pretty damn good player for the Knicks until the injuries and the other shit behind the scenes. But that's what we have right now. A lot of NBA talk. I'm glad we have a chance to talk about this NBA. This is like making up for lost time all season long.
October, November, December, even January. I don't even
January and February, because
you asked me about the All-Star. You asked me about the All-Star game one time. I was like, really? You know I don't watch that.
I know you don't watch the All-Star game, so we didn't really get to talk about anything in depth until just these series, this playoff series period. Not even just the Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, but even from the beginning, those games have been something to look forward to. Even the Denver series playing against the Timberwolves, that all those things that played. What was it? Denver playing the Timberwolves, or was it OKC? Look at this. What's going on as we going?
OKC played Denver.
Yeah, OKC playing Denver. And they're making Jokic seem like he's a second-class citizen now, which isn't even true. And I remember the scouting report on him. He's not athletic, and he's slow, this and that, but his IQ makes up for all of it. And he just played the way he played and has 3 MVPs to prove it. But now moving forward, we got a championship game, as I'm going to say again, and looking forward to it. Even when I don't, typically if the Knicks come that close to it, or the Yankees get that close, or even the World Series, they lose, I'm done. Because when the Yankees lost the World Series last year, I wasn't thinking about the Knicks or basketball any damn way until about February. You get that little hangover. And when the Knicks lose now, you're like, forget about it. I'm not watching that championship game, watching the finals. But I think because the excitement these two teams bring, I'd like to see what the ratings are going to be, considering they claim the NBA ratings are still continuously going down. But I'm thinking now that things have to have gone up in these playoffs, because these playoffs have been so damn good and compelling.
You would think, but there's no large market for these finals. So,
well,
traditionally the markets drive the ratings, but there's so much streaming now. Like, do ratings even
all over
matter?
the world? All over the world.
Matter?
And this is so national now. I don't think New York Knicks fans are not going to watch the finals. New York being a basketball city, a basketball state, Chicago being a basketball city, Illinois being a basketball state, those guys aren't going to watch the NBA finals. They just love basketball, a lot of them. You know what I mean? That northeastern corridor where about, a third of the freaking nation's population lives, they just love basketball up in that area. So, yeah, I think they're going to get some good ratings because there's new faces there.
Let me give Adam Silver a suggestion. For basketball fans be like, I don't really care about OKC and the Pacers. I'm not going to watch. Let there be like a serious skirmish, controversial calls, something to get attention. Like, look at this bullshit. Or even better, if SGA goes to the line 20 times, put Halliburton at the line 20 times. Then at the end of the game, you can say SGA dropped 42 and they edged out the Pacers because Halliburton had 39. Got to draw some interest.
Yeah. Now that's something they got to talk about before the game, because I know you're hearing these stories on YouTube and these reps coming out of the woodwork and saying how the NBA didn't necessarily tell them how to favor one team or the other, but they did make them take heed to some of these fouls that were called in game one, or that weren't called in game one, to make sure you make those calls in game two. So you go about playing your game two like you did your game one, think you're going to get the same result, but now you're getting called for it, and now the fans think it's fixed because it's not what was passed the game before.
You just reminded me. I saw LeBron. He was on the podcast. I don't know if it's his podcast. I can't remember who he's talking to, but they were asking about playoff officiating. He was whining like, okay, how you go to like no contact to now you can get away with all this hand checking and this and that and blah, blah. Give us some time to adjust. Give us like a month before the playoffs so we can adjust and be ready for the playoffs. Man, you act like you're the only one who had to play under those conditions. Man, fuck out of here. You got bounced. Just shut the hell up and rehab that knee that isn't even hurt.
You're dancing on.
Yeah.
I don't know why Well, he is still kind of the face of the NBA, and he still has a lot of clout in the NBA. And what he says, some people still
Well, how
consider
stupid
him.
is that too? Okay. All right, send the memo. We're gonna start calling games like it's the playoffs
And then, of
on,
course,
on April
and Vegas will
1st.
adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, the whole damn thing is fixed if they do something like that. But yeah, man. Well, and how about for the final time, Ernie Johnson, the NBA on TNT, finally signing off yesterday. They're going to be on different channels, like ESPN or ABC. They're both owned by Disney, so I guess they'll be switching back and forth. The dynamic of that TNT family, will it be the same on ESPN or ABC? Will it be the same anywhere off of TNT, even with the same crew?
I would think it'd be the same if it's the same people, but you have producers
Yep,
and people who in their ear who might be saying, talk about this, mention that. And I don't know.
different people. Yeah.
My favorite comedian of all time is Damon Williams. And I heard he was gonna be on Saturday Night Live, and I was like so excited. And then like 3 weeks later, he was off of Saturday Night Live. And it turns out they weren't letting him be who he was. They didn't let him do his skits. They were putting him in coon situations. He's like, fuck that, I'm out. You're not gonna let me do what I do. You see my show, you know what I'm about, and you want to box me into these coon situations? Nah, I'm out.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
can
see
see how
what
that
happens.
happens. Yeah, I just hate when that happens, when people take away the legitimate spontaneity of what comes on any type of a broadcast, but sports in particular, because there's a lot more emotion involved with sports. And they take you from being, it's like telling Charles Barkley to change what he does. You start
That's what
whispering
I'm
in his
saying.
ear, Chuck, don't say this. Chuck, don't say that. He's going to curse you out first and then
You,
give you
you
a show
can't
for that.
you can't
It's
say
still,
turbo anymore, Chuck. You can't
I
say
know,
turbo.
fix the way you speak. It's too late for that. Those marbles are still going to be there forever. But
and,
anyway,
and no more racing to the big video screen back there. We can't have any injuries. All that fun stuff they do. Who knows?
I don't know how this new set is going to be, if they're going to set it up like that. It would be,
There
I
may
don't,
not be a big screen video in
exactly.
there.
I think they're going to change the entire dynamic, because I know how kind of media works. They're not going to want to have the same thing they just came from. They want you to forget about that, because their broadcast, they want to have their broadcast etched in your mind. They don't want to have things from other than the personalities themselves. They don't want to have remnants from the previous show that was successful as hell on their show, because these guys do them a copy of that. That's ego-driven nonsense. And it's all psychological as well.
But why mess up a good thing too? Why mess with it? Like, you know what?
It's business. Ernie
It's
said it yesterday.
the only
It's
difference
business.
is going to be NBA on ESPN now
Yeah,
instead
but
of TNT.
I can guarantee when they do come up, it's not going to look anything like. They might add their own little gimmicks in there, but it won't look anything like the TNT studios. All the little games and little funny things they would do in there that kind of help make the show in addition to their analysis. I doubt it's going to be like that. They're going to change it. They may have some goofy stuff
Yeah.
there just to show that it's still funny and it's
But
basketball,
are they
but
going to
it's not going to be
force?
like TNT.
Are they going to force Stephen A on them? Are they going to force
Uh,
Big Perk because Big Perk and Charles have a little bit of static, and that might be for good TV.
it,
Or like, well, let's bring on Tim Legler to break it down. Well, why do you have the former NBA players there if they can't break it down?
and that's true too. I don't, you know, I don't know. You want things to be organic. You don't want it to sound forced. Even though we know that Chuck and Perk don't get along or they bump heads, you don't want that to be the main thing that happens all the time. And people kind of expecting it, even though some people may get off on it, because then when it runs
But
run its
but
course,
but
then what?
it would be funny to hear Big Perk talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and then Chuck's first reaction come out and say, "You're an idiot."
Then they're gonna have to take a personal, go to commercial break or something. But yeah, it's going to be something to look forward to coming into the next season. In addition, you have that changing, and you have MJ now coming to NBC. A lot is going to be going on in the NBA. So if you had no reason to watch other than the games and even the possible defending champs, regardless of which team it is, you have a lot of that on the outside that's to look forward to coming into the next 2025-2026 season.
Do
But
you
yeah,
think they're gonna bring back that old NBC intro song?
oh, you know what? I don't even know. I I wonder if they're going to try to hang on to that because MJ is involved and he did win his 6 championships there. I wonder did it kind of just bring that for the nostalgia purposes. You know what I mean? Because all the old heads who watched MJ win championships, they'll fall in love with it. It's gonna be up to the younger people to see what the hell is this, or if they're gonna embrace it as well.
I don't know. I don't think I'd mind it. I'm just curious to see what they come with. But if I tune into CBS football, I would love to hear you are looking live at Lambeau Field or whatever stadium, Soldier
Yeah,
Field. Growing up, that's what I always heard. Brent Musburger, you're looking live at the Meadowlands in New York.
yeah. I'm telling you, when Pat Summerall and John Madden left CBS and went to Fox, that wasn't the same. And them teaming up together, even though their team is impeccable, the best that's ever been and the best that ever will be in terms of football, it was, it just wasn't the same vibe you got from the CBS, from when it was on CBS. It just wasn't the same thing. Even when he was giving away that mutated turkey on Thanksgiving with all the legs,
Turducken.
The turducken with all the freaking legs, like everyone's leg, like the Can girls on Broadway had so many legs on that joint. But even when he did it there, it just didn't feel the same as when it was on CBS. But yeah, well, it's all about business. It's all about change. And I know that Ernie Johnson did mention ESPN. He mentioned ABC. He even mentioned Amazon Prime. Like everybody's in the business now. All these different entities are in the business. Does money really make it a better product? Amazon has more money than all of them. Can they just pay a whole bunch of people, throw them together, and hope the chemistry is there? Or are they professional enough to make the chemistry work the way that they expect it to work? But anyway,
I think ultimately the play on the court will dictate.
It's going to dictate it all. Yeah.
I never tune into TNT to watch the pregame or postgame show. Like I tune in to watch the game, and if the game was worth reviewing or watching again or hearing them talk about it, then I just stick around to watch. But honestly, I'm not a hater. I'm not a big fan. It just is what it is. I didn't NBA on TNT. It was all right, but
I didn't watch it a lot. I'll admit I hadn't.
Yeah,
I did not even.
It's not something
like
I'm going to miss.
but there are a hell of a lot of fans of it. I mean, there's been, you go to these groups and on Facebook or any other social media, and even on YouTube when they have it on there, and you look at the comments, they love them. They love those guys. Everybody loves Charles Barkley. Everybody kind of likes Shaq.
They even brought him in for they brought him in for NCAA.
NCAA. Oh yeah, you know what they do? Yeah, they do that. They bring in Chuck for NCAA. He was jumping on that Auburn bandwagon. The usual
Smith too.
Auburn guy himself. But NCAA, speaking of that gives us a chance to transition to a little bit of the NFL. Saquon Barkley on the cover of 26. What's going on?
Is he?
Yeah. He's already injured a lot.
Eagles are done. Eagles are done.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, damn. He's had quite a bit of injuries in his career.
He deserves it, though.
Huh?
He deserves it.
Oh yeah, he does it. Well, does he deserve it? I mean, as far as the injuries that are going to come
2,000 yards last year.
He
could have ran some more if he chose to.
For the karma that comes with it, I mean, he deserves it for the accomplishments. He doesn't deserve it because of the karma.
He just deserves to be the cover guy.
He deserves everything he gets from being on that cover.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he's on the cover, man. That's a good deal. And now we're in June. That means next month is training camp, and you're getting to hear all of these things and storylines coming up. And I know here now they're talking about how they have to talk to Travis Etienne. There's nothing to the rumors of him being traded or moved around and all the other stuff. So when they tell you there's no problem with it, and they're saying that you're guaranteed to be here, just have your bags packed near the door real quick. You might be out of the damn door after all.
Right.
And now Aaron Rodgers still hasn't decided what the hell he wanted to do. How are we in June and he still doesn't have a team? No OTAs, no nothing. Is he that kind of player after what we've seen with the Jets, even in just a season and one game or one snap? Is he that kind of player who could miss OTAs and all that and not have chemistry?
I don't know. I think Steelers would be dumb as hell to sign Aaron Rodgers now. I mean,
yeah, right.
Before I thought it was dumb. Now it'd be dumb as hell.
Dumb. Yeah.
He should have been in the fold already. But now I would rescind the offer. Like, I don't know what game you're playing, but you're not going to be playing for us. Like, I'm surprised. I'm surprised Tomlin's, playing that cat and mouse game with him.
Well, when they talk to him about it, he does say things like, we're going to go with the guys we have right now, the usual coach speak. But I guess when he does come, they'll be happy to have him. And really, for what? I mean, after what he had done last season, and even though it was the Jets, but still, there were games where there were players that were wide open and he was throwing it to them. It just wasn't getting there. It was getting picked, or he just wasn't looking good last season. I never seen him look like that before. And now because you've been spoiled, or we've been spoiled by seeing Tom Brady making those throws and still making those completions at an advanced age, you thought that somebody who's equally more talented, allegedly, and supposed to be great, not as great as Tom because he doesn't have the range to prove it, you think that he would be able to do a lot of the same, and he hadn't done it. But yeah, the NFL definitely coming up. A lot to look forward to. Cam Ward, what is he going to do as the number 1 pick overall? Ashton Genty, what is he going to do as the I guess the best running back coming into this draft and going into this season, almost breaking Barry Sanders' record, at least on a major level. And I remember Kevin Smith from UCF was at that spot when Mississippi State prevented him from breaking Barry's record. He didn't do much in the NFL, but now, you have Ashton Genty, someone who has special ability, who's probably going to be able to do something like that. So that gives us a chance to move on, because boxing is something we could talk about. And the loss of the great Mike McCallum, 3-division champ, passes away at 68 years old on May 31st. Man, it was shocking to me, because this is a guy that, if you're a hardcore boxing fan, you definitely know about him. He never hit the mainstream. You can ask someone in the street, they don't know who he is.
Yeah, rest in peace, body snatcher. He was a tremendous fighter, never got his opportunity against the top fighters. Hearns, Leonard, Hagler, none of them got in the ring with him. And when I think about what he did to Donald Curry, the NWA movie, when Suge tells Eazy-E, "Don't make me change you." That's what Body Snatcher did to Curry. He changed him.
He changed his
Curry
life.
Was never the same.
That left hook, man. Bro, I remember seeing that left hook, the crack right there. But I was like, bro, he just caught him with it, and that was it. And he was winning the fight. Curry was getting off a little bit during the early rounds, and it was a 5-round fight. Then he catches him with that left hook, and that was it. But let's go on to all the other things he's done. First of all, he gave Julian Jackson his first loss at 154. Mm-hmm. And I said that was Julian Jackson's best weight. So even what happened against McClellan, I said, okay, yeah, they were both big bangers, but there was a little bit of weight bullying going on there with McClellan, weight bullying. But McCallum ends up fighting James Toney. Even in his old age, his last loss was to James Toney, the third time they fought.
Yeah, I thought he won the first one for sure. I thought the second one, they called the first one a draw. The second one they gave to Toney. I thought he won that one as well. I don't even remember watching the third one. I'm like, for what? They're just going to give it to Toney. So I don't think I even watched it.
Yeah, that first one was a draw, at least on paper. Yeah, and, there was times when Toney didn't do what he was supposed to. He couldn't even get rid of the old man, and that was his last fight.
But when he fought Roy, yeah, I feared for McCallum. I thought, man, Roy's going to be too much. But McCallum, the old wily veteran, he gave a good showing. I mean, Roy wasn't threatened in losing, but he didn't dominate either. I thought he was just gonna blow him out the water.
That's what I thought, man.
McCallum was too cagey.
Mike McCallum's skills, for people on the outside, they never really gave him the credit he deserved, probably because he wasn't that headhunter. He was that body snatcher, but he had such a great skill set to get in there subtly to get to your body. And that required a few jabs, or a little tricky jab here, a short jab there, just to get inside, to get to your body. And he did exactly that. And so, and the big guys, as you mentioned, the big guys didn't fight him. And we're talking about the legitimate big guys. It took big names late in his career to fight him, like Roy Jones, like James Toney, late in his career to fight him. Hearns never gave him that shot. Leonard never gave him that shot. I like to see what he would have done with Duran, because I never even heard that as even being a possibility. What he would have done against Benitez at 154. See,
yeah, but Duran went up to fight Barkley. Why not fight McCallum?
He went up at 168 to fight Barkley.
Right.
And he didn't fight McCallum. And that
he would have been an older Duran anyway, but still he would have got an opportunity. I mean, Duran beat Barkley. What if McCallum beats Duran?
Man, and that's true. We don't like to use the triangle method when it comes to to the boxers, but man, there were just so many fighters out there that just did not give him the chance. He
Well,
never got that
I
huge
only say
payday.
that because if Duran beat Barkley and then McCallum beat Duran, you can't say, well, that was an old Duran. He shot it.
You know how they do that.
No, he beat Barkley, man. He went up a bunch of divisions, beat a dude in his prime, and then lost to McCallum. That would have been a legitimate win.
And Barkley beat Tommy Hearns twice. So that surprising loss that he had, I remember that first loss, the first loss that Tommy Hearns had against Eron Barkley, that third round knockout, because I remember, I think it was Dick Anderson, who was right for the New York Daily News back then. He predicted Hearns to win by a third round knockout. And I guess he didn't look at the entire storyline, because just before that, what's his name, died right before that fight. And he and Eron Barkley were great friends, Davey Moore. And that's the one that Duran hadn't beaten, that 154. But anyways, he goes into that fight and with cuts and everything, because he was getting beat down. He comes with that damn right hand shot, and Hearns' chin let him down. But then I think at light heavyweight, they fought again, and he beats Hearns again. So I'm starting to wonder on the outside, damn, does Barkley deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, man? I don't know, but I don't think he's going to get there because of the losses. But man, you just look down his resume. The guys who did want to fight him, Sumbu Kalambe, he lost the fight against Sumbu the first time. And then he won the split decision in the second fight, the time they fought. And for people who knew Subun Kalambe, that's the one that
the one got knocked out by Nunn.
By Michael Nunn in the first pick round.
Yeah, nobody considered Nunn a hard puncher either.
Nah, he was just a slick dude, and that gave him a lot more credibility, and he deserved it skill-wise. But we never thought about it power-wise. And I do remember he and Marlon Starling got together. I was waiting for that. Was supposed to be a super fight, one of the most boring fights ever since Mike Tyson and James Smith. Oh my God. But yeah, man, there's a little storyline there. There's a guy named Fermin Chirino who fought Mike McCallum as well. And this is a story when I was at the old Times Square gym back in the day, just 18 years old. Fermin Chirino beat one of my favorite boxers. It was Matthew Hilton from Canada. He had the plaid trunks and everything, 154 champ, beat Buster Drayton for that title. And he beat Matthew Hilton. And one day I was in the gym and I see him, and I told my trainer I want to spar with him. He said, Furman? I'm like, yeah. He had one of these, like, not upside down records, but he lost a lot. And I'm like, oh, bro, and this is what back in the day we was calling bones at 18 years old and all that kind of crap. Bro, I bugged my trainer so much until we eventually got a chance to spar. I was trying my best. This dude didn't even break a sweat. He didn't even try to move. Bro, it's like everything he threw, as slow as it was landing. And now I'm like, wait a minute. And then I was feeling that he had some power too. And you just confused everything else. It was just one round. And the trainer was like, all right, that's going to be it, just one round. And I thought about it, man. You're talking about change your mind from thinking fighters ain't crap. Like, this is a dude looks the part of a worn-out fighter. He looks the part of a slow fighter. There's nothing special about him. Guess who was less special? That's exactly what ended up happening. Unbelievable, man. But that Fermin Chirino, man, to this day, I give that dude props, man. If I could get him to the Hall of Fame, I would, even though he's nearly upside down. But yeah, that was the storyline behind that. And Mike McCallum made easy work out of him too. So I wouldn't spar with Mike. Get out of here. But that's the way it happens, man. It sucks. Now, this past.
Let me tell you something. I saw, because, a while back we did our top 5 Mexican fighters of all time.
Yeah.
Teddy Atlas, he and his son put out videos on YouTube all the time. And I guess a few weeks ago for the Ben Eubank Sons fighting, they did the top 10, or Teddy did top 10 British fighters. And then when Canelo was going to fight a few weeks ago, he did top 10 Mexican fighters. And he had Chavez number 1.
Yep.
And he had, who did he have number 2?
Salvador Sanchez.
No, he had Sanchez number 3.
Really?
Yeah. But he had Baby Arizmendi number 4. His rationale was he went 3-3 against Henry Armstrong.
Yeah,
I can't argue that.
I'm trying to figure out how can he come with that. What? You go 3-3 against Henry Armstrong, and it's unsaid for people who know their damn boxing. Damn, bro, you know what? There's no real argument there.
Because the picture came on the screen. I'm like, Baby Arizmendi. He started talking. I was like, oh, I didn't know he was 3-3 against Hank. Homicide Hank. Well, all right. Well, he convinced me. He made me a believer.
That one time, Teddy Atlas had access to the largest boxing library on the planet. That was Bill Caton's boxing library that he had. And so he could see every fight. That's the fights that that young Mike Tyson was able to watch on the reels and learn all those old school fighters.
He mentioned He mentioned his favorite fighters were Armstrong and Sam Langford.
Sam Langford, yeah, Sam Langford. You hear a lot of stories about him and how he didn't get his opportunities, and because of the times and whatnot. But yeah, Sam Langford's name is going to come up a lot in any boxing list for people who watched him fight or didn't not watch him fight, but read about him fight. They ain't watch him fight.
There can't be too many out there.
Nah.
Can't be too many out there.
Because even when Bert Sugar and I talked about him, and Bert didn't say, I remember when I saw him, he just talked about him. That was it, man. That's as far as it got. He didn't talk about no damn Sam Langford like he been in their audience. But Mike McCallum gone too soon. And damn, hell, well, as far as opportunity goes, Caleb Plant's opportunity gone too soon against Charlo, losing this past weekend. Unbelievable, man. But anyway, it's not even worth talking about that damn fight. Stick to the body snatcher and give him all the credit in the world. And I hate that it had to end like this. Not that he passed away, but this guy never had gotten his opportunity against the best or the people that call themselves the best. I'm surprised with Marvin Hagler. Marvin ducked no one. I still say that his title run was just as tough, if not his run to the title was tougher than his actual title run. And I thought that, he'd run to McCallum at some point or another, but he just didn't. And McCallum stayed at 154 for a minute too, but so was John Mugabe 154 before he came to 150, came to 160. And but
I mean, I'm not going to say Hagler ducked.
No, Hagler ducked.
He fought Mugabe when Mugabe was a known killer.
Every freaking fight was a knockout for Mugabe when Hagler fought him, and he ate them damn shots.
And you know what? I saw another video recently. They had Tommy Hearn, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Marvin Hagler, and Sugar Ray was like, Tommy, you had a knockout punch, and I had a knockout punch, but you knocked me down, I knocked you down. Well, what happened with Marvin? And Tommy's like, well, Ray, I had a knockout punch. Like you said, I know I got a knockout punch, but Marvin didn't know I had a knockout punch.
Hey, Marvin walked right through it. But that's just a different guy. I was just talking about that kind of thing today where they're just
when you talk about the best chins of all time, like Hagler's up there, Iron Chin.
I was just talking about that today with somebody else in terms of people who get hit on the chin, and you have no say in the matter. Sometimes you get hit in the button, but dudes like Marvin Hagler taking shots from some of these hardest punches that's ever been in the division, and he just willed himself to staying up and still winning the fight, and that's just not normal. We see too many people who catch them shots, and that's it. You don't have a say in the matter. You can hit with the right shot from a hard puncher. Bro, he
doesn't step back. He doesn't wobble.
He gets more pissed off.
Just keeps coming like, that's all you got? Come on.
I know they talked about Julio Cesar Chavez, which is my second favorite fight of all time. And they talked about his unusually thick cranium. Okay. He still had to take the punches. Them shit still hurt. His brain probably didn't get jarred as much, but those damn punches still damn hurt when he got hit with them. So, yeah, unusually quick cranium. Okay, yeah, that'll pass, but you can't hide the pain that comes with those shots that are thrown at you. And that's as simple as that. And Chavez Jr. and Jake Paul still fighting. I don't know when, but whatever. Oh, whatever, right? That's to go from sugar to shit. That's exactly what happened just now. But anyways, he's Bias on Trav, and the Sports Bag Bros podcast will come back at you on a Thursday, right before the NBA finals start between the Pacers and OKC in Oklahoma City. Until then, deuces.